Hello, beautiful algebra people. Welcome to another fun-filled lesson. We are only going to do one section today, the last section of Chapter 8. Only a couple vocab words. The first one is coordinate plane. And the coordinate plane is this thing that you graph on. It's formed by the intersection of two perpendicular, I make that sign for perpendicular. Perpendicular means it hits at a 90-degree angle. So two perpendicular number lines called axes. All right, so this is the x-axis. It is the horizontal line. And the y-axis is the vertical line. And this special point right here has a special name. It is the origin. And that point is 0, 0. And that brings us to the next word, which is ordered pair. So in ordered pair, you write as the x coordinates and then the y coordinate. So if I draw a coordinate plane, I'm going to do one more before I go on. Quadrants. There are 4 quadrants in the coordinate plane. This is the first quadrant. You go counterclockwise, second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant. If a point is on an axis, that is not considered in a quadrant. So point, okay, so if you think about this very first quadrant, all of the ordered pairs, it would be a positive in the x, and it would be a positive in the y. So the ordered pairs here are positive, positive. Both numbers are positive. In the second quadrant, it would be a negative for the x value and a positive for the y value. So again, x goes first and then y goes second. And remember, x is how far over and y is how far up. In the third quadrant, you have a negative x and a negative y. And in the fourth quadrant, you have a positive x and a negative y. So I'm going to give you a list of points. I want you to draw a quadrant, or draw a coordinate plane, put them in the quadrants, and then list which quadrant they are in. So we'll do A through F. So 1, 1, 0, 3, 8, negative 2, -5, -5, 0, 0, the origin, and -4, 5. So go ahead and draw your coordinate plane, plot them, and then just list what quadrant they're in, and we'll quickly check. Go ahead and hit pause. Okay, A11 is going to be right about here. That's in quadrant 1. You can actually list your point with a letter A. B is over 0, up 3. That appears to be between quadrant 1 and 2, but this is not in a quadrant, so we are going to put nothing or no quadrant or not quadrant. Over 8 down 2 is going to be somewhere over here. That is in quadrant 4. -5, -5 is somewhere down here. That is quadrant 3. 0, 0, the origin is no quadrant. Again, anything on either axis is not in a quadrant. And negative 4 up 5 is somewhere up here, hanging out in lovely quadrant 2. All right. The x, if you have an equation, okay, so an equation contains two variables, so two letters, and you can generate ordered pairs from them, like in a table. So if you had the equation y equals 10x plus 5, the x is your input. It's called the independent variable. It is what you are in charge of. The y is considered the output. It is called the dependent variable. So when you put what you are in charge of, it's the answers that you get. So this is the results. So you should be able to generate a table for this. We would put x and y. If you plug 0 in for x, that would be 10 times 0 plus 5. So that is 5. If you plug a 1 in for x, 10 times 1 plus 5, that's 15. I'm hoping that you remember that this is the slope, so this is the increase. See how we are increasing by 10? So at some point, you don't even need to plug these in. You could just know that 2 is 25 and 3 is 35. Now let's say you needed to figure out 10. It's probably going to be quicker to plug it in than to go all the way down to 10. So 10 times this number 10, because we're putting that in for x, plus 5 is 105. All right, I'm going to show you how to do this on your graphing calculator. So if you open the little bunny right here, Wobbit, your calculator should appear. And the first thing you want to do is clear your memory. It's probably clear, but second plus 712 will clear your memory. And then you want to go to the y equals, the top left button. And this is where you type in your equation. So the equation we just did was 10x. The XTO button is in the second row, second button, right next to the green alpha key, plus 5. And next, let's hit window, which is the second button. And this tells us that the window we're looking at, the x values, so the horizontal axis goes from negative 10 to 10, and the scale it counts by is 1. And the y goes from negative 10 to 10, so vertically it goes from negative 10 to 10, and also counts by 1. Now, if we look at a table, so second graph, second is the blue top left button. That's not going to work really well because if we're only looking from negative 10 to 10, we're only going to see the 0 point. In fact, if you hit graph, you will see that you don't see much in this top quadrant. So if you go back to window, so graph is that very top row, the last button. Window is that second button in the top row. X minimum should be 0 because we started at 0. We have gone up to 10, so we could go past that to like 12. And then a good number to count by would be 1s. That would give us about 12 counters. In the Y, let's start at 0. And then let's go up to, the answer for 10 gave us 105, so maybe we should go up to about 150. And if you're going from 0 to 150, what would be a good number to count by? You want anywhere between 10 and 20 counters. So let's say 10, because that would be 15 counters, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and so on. All right, so now when you hit graph, you will see the same exact graph that we saw before, but now with a different scale. It looks totally different. And then you can hit trace if you want to see any numbers. which is the second from the last button. And then down here are your ordered pairs. 6 will give you 65, and you probably don't want those decimals. All right, so let's go ahead and clear this. So second plus 712. And I'm going to give you 3 different equations to work with here. And then we'll come back and see how you did. So y equals 1/2 x minus 4. Y equals 3x squared plus 3. And y equals absolute value of x minus 2. Go ahead and hit pause, see if you can generate tables and graphs. All right, so for the first one, if you plug in 0, you get -4. In fact, this number is always called your y-intercept. And then this number tells you what happened. So this means we're going up by 1/2. So 1 should be -3.5. And if you want to plug that in, 1/2 times 1 is 1/2, and 1/2 minus 4 is -3.5. So 2 would be -3, and so on. A graph of that should start at -4, and then it should be going, it's not a slope of 1, it's a slope of 1/2. So it's actually over 2, up 1. It's a little flatter than a slope of 1. So that is a very rough graph. If you go to the calculator, under y equals, if you put in 1/2, you would need to put it in a parentheses. So that's a little tricky thing. Or you could have put in 0.5 since it's a terminating decimal. So 1/2 x minus 4. Be careful to put the minus and not the negative. So your window is already set for -10 to 10, and that should actually work for this. So there's your graph. And second graph is your table of data. Good way to check yourself. So second plus 712 clears that. Let's go to the second equation, 3x squared plus 3. Order of operations says you do need to square before you multiply. So plugging 0 in, you do get the 3. When you plug 1 in, you have 3 times 1 squared plus 3. That's 3 times 1 plus 3. So that's 3 plus 3, which is 6. And when you plug 2 in, that's 3 times 2 squared plus 3. So 3 times 4 plus 3, 12 plus 3, which is 15. So this is not going up by a constant like this one, because this is a line and this isn't. This has some x squared stuff, which we will get to. Very exciting. So when you graph this, you start at 3, and then 1 is at 6, and 2 is at 15. So it's going to be more of a curve, getting steeper. And if we try this in a graphing calculator, you would go to y equals and type in 3x squared. There's a squared button right here, or you could do to the. This is to the second. So either one would work. I'm going to go back and hit delete because I don't want both. You'll get the same answer either way. Plus 3. Oh my. Okay, and this, if you hit graph, you can see that it's actually a curve. There's also a zoom feature, if that's helpful. So the middle is zoom, and then you could go to zoom out, which is 3. Oops. It's zooming out slowly. And there should be a zoom fit. Oh, there we go. And that's going to show it to you as well. And if you go to the window, the table, which is second graph, you can see how this data increases faster and faster and faster. All right, and our last one was absolute value of x minus 2. So let me remember. Absolute value is under math. Go over to number and then hit enter. So absolute value of x minus 2. And then you need to end your parentheses. Maybe we should do this first right here. So 0 would give you the absolute value of negative 2, which is 2. 1 would give you the absolute value of negative 1, which is 1. 2 would give you the absolute value of 0, which is 0. 3 would give you the absolute value of 1, which is 1. So thinking of what a graph of this would look like, over 0, up 2, over 1, up 1, over 2, up 0, over 3, up 1. It's going to be some sort of like 2 lines making a V. And if we go back to the graphing calculator and hit graph, we're still in zoom fit. So let's go back to window, and you can see how it changed our window. So negative 10 to 10 counting by 1. And let's do negative 10. Remember, it's that very bottom negative key to 10 counting by 1 again. And then when you hit graph, you have the V. And it starts right here at 2. And you can also hit table, second graph, and see the data. Exactly what you got by hand. All right, well, I hope that was invigorating for you as it was for me. Have a lovely evening, and think about how grateful you are to be able to do this.